Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my 100% walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Nintendo Wii. So we just left Skyloft for the first time, and we entered the first area of the Faron Woods called the Sealed Grounds. Now, as soon as you arrive, actually, it shows that a button prompt that wants you to press B to deploy your sailcloth so you don't take damage when you hit the ground. And actually, what happens is it'll automatically deploy it, and Fi will comment that she encourages you to press B because she deployed it for you this time, and that you're silly for not doing it. Basically, it's just kind of an interesting dialogue option that they have here, that the fact that they even thought to include that, or I think the way they handled it was pretty good. She's like, by the way, that was dumb. Actually, ironically enough, how this works is they actually programmed it so when you're diving from the sky anyways, whenever you teleport from the sky to any place on the surface, it will automatically deploy your sailcloth, so you don't ever have to press it, actually. It has a button prompt on the screen, you don't actually have to do it. But whenever you're already on the surface and the screen changes, whatever, like you pass through a door or whatever and you're falling, whatever type of thing, you do have to press B, otherwise you will take damage when you land. And they actually have a quick tutorial about this, almost immediately. And now, Fi also notes that she unveils your map whenever you enter a new area. The exception to this is anytime you're in dungeons. This only does this for overworld areas. So far, I have been using the Z button to target enemies, and that is the middle finger on your left hand on your nunchuck, and that will allow you hold that down, you'll target an enemy if you're close enough. You can use this to center your vision in general, to look forward, but you can also use it to target enemies, and it will target whatever you're currently facing. So if there's multiple enemies, you just face towards the one you want, and then press Z, and you'll target that. And this changes your moveset a little bit, which allows you to backflip and side jump, and also jump forward. Now, when you slash your sword, if you swing the Wiimote while you're in midair, you'll perform a jump attack, and that's actually pretty powerful. But you can also perform jump attacks by sprinting, and this works pretty well too. So when you're not targeting, if you're sprinting with A and then you just swing your Wiimote, you'll actually perform a jump attack, and this is actually very effective against some enemies. Now, they do have to be vulnerable from that direction. In this example, we have a Deku Baba. This particular one is vulnerable to horizontal slashes. The next one, meanwhile, is vulnerable to vertical slashes. Tongue twister. Vulnerable to vertical. Anyways, continuing onward. Now, something I did a little bit ago is I was showing how you can press Z and then press down on the D-pad to get information from Fi. And as you get close to this double set of Deku Babas, she will flash on your screen. You can optionally talk with her, and she talks about talking with her to get information while you're targeting an enemy. You can press down on the D-pad, and she'll talk about them. This is useful. I'm not actually going to be doing this throughout the rest of the game. I just wanted to show that right here. Now, a couple options for Deku Babas in particular. If you're not sure you want to deal with them, you can perform Skyward Strikes. Again, you do this by charging the sword by holding it straight up. This will allow you to attack them from range. Another option is to just use Shield Bashes. Again, a well-timed Shield Bash will stun most enemies, which makes them vulnerable to your attacks. It's great. Alright, once that movie is over with, you want to turn around, and you can use the heart flowers nearby to heal yourself in case you got hurt with those Deku Babas. But continue on downwards towards the ceiling spike, and what you want to do is just press B right before you hit the ground. This will slow your fall. You can use this anytime whenever you're in midair to deploy your sailcloth, but I just like to tap it real quick to slow my fall so that I don't take damage when I land. So in order to progress, you need to perform a Skyward Strike, and again, how you do this is you just hold the sword straight up. This might be a little bit weird if your controller's uncalibrated, but you just want to do it until the animation of Link holding the sword is above his head, and once you're at that position, just hold still, and what'll happen is it'll snap in place, and then it'll start charging. So just hold the controller still. Once it's fully charged, you can swing the remote in whatever direction you want, and this will shoot a Skyward Strike at the ceiling spike. So at this point, Fi introduces a new mechanic called dowsing. How this works is it replaces our C button, so we can use C so that we can see things. Ugh, bad pun. Anyways, so you hold down the C button, it pulls up a radial menu, and then you can select what you want to search for. While you have something selected, then when you press C, you can look around, and while looking around, it will also like heatsink on towards the direction of the signature of something you're looking for, which is an interesting mechanic. So this allows you to progress through the game. So if you ever get lost, you can just douse with C, and this tells you where to go. So that's all sweet and everything. A lot of people, when they first played this game, were like, what? Dowsing? What the heck is this? Is this even a word? Did Nintendo just make this up? And that's actually not true. Dowsing is a thing in real life. It typically involves using two pieces of metal that are bent, and they like swing back and forth, depending on stuff that is below them in the ground. It actually has to do with magnetic fields. Dowsing is used often to find like chunks of metal, but in particular, usually bodies of water. So they use it out in the desert and stuff like that. But anyways, just know that it is a real thing in real life, is dowsing. So it does not work by pointing a pointy object like a sword straight forward. That is not how it works, but just know it is a real thing. This also unlocks another new mechanic, the geysers. You just walk into them and you'll use the sailcloth to go up a level, and that's all great. So head up back towards the door. The seal is now broken now that we've fixed that ceiling spike down in the pit. So the Zelda series is known for having a lot of characters that are kind of like reoccurring. Like, even though it's a different game and the characters have different faces, different names, they have the same theme, sometimes even the same name and the same general function, even though you don't necessarily know who they are. So one of the reoccurring characters that has been in Zelda games is an old man, for example. And in this case, in this particular game, that is Gaepora, the headmaster, Zelda's father. But meanwhile, they also typically have an old woman. So in this game, that is this old woman here in the shrine. So she is teaching you how to place beacons on your map. So you need to press the plus button to pull up your map, and you actually have to like zoom in to make sure you have to be exactly on the X. If you're not, then she'll whine at you. So I actually recommend you zoom in with A. So while holding up your map, press A, zoom in, press C on your map to place a beacon once you have it positioned great, and then go ahead and exit your map, and then you can continue on. The old woman also recommends that you open the treasure chest that is in this room before you leave, and this is actually kind of interesting because she says the same thing regardless of what you do. Most characters in Skyward Sword will actually, like, have their dialogue changes depending on what you've done, so if you do various actions before you speak with her, then her actions will change or whatever, or her dialogue changes. This is one of the few exceptions in the game. I usually actually open the treasure chest first. The reason I did it afterwards in this case is because her dialogue is talking about it. But anyways, off to the left there is a treasure chest here. You want to go ahead and open it. This has another bottle. This particular one comes with a revitalizing potion. Now, revitalizing potions will restore a little bit of hearts, but it also will replenish the durability on your shields. I recommend you don't use this. Try to hold on to it and wait until your shield is pretty damaged, and then use this potion. Before you leave, you want to head over to the right side. There is a fairy inside the single jar over here. So you want to smack it, and then don't touch the fairy, actually. What you want to do is hold down the minus button and select the empty bottle that we got from Love, the potion shop lady, earlier. And then while standing near the fairy, without ever actually touching it, press A while holding the bottle. This will allow you to swipe it, and this will put the fairy in the bottle, which will heal you. So this is a far superior option to the heart potion that she was selling. Fairies will automatically heal you 6 hearts when you die, which is actually our total health pool at this point. So they'll automatically heal you if you die. It's basically just a free life mechanic. It does only heal you 6 hearts, so once we have more health, it's not as effective, but for now, it's amazing. You can also sit on stools. This will slowly heal you over time, which is great. A lot of characters will give commentary if you sit on a stool near them, and I think about half the stools in the game are near characters. The rest of them are just in random places, either out in the overworld or even in dungeons. So as you leave the sealed grounds through the door that the old woman opened, you'll see the cinematic showing the beacon in the distance. So beacons will show up on your screen, and so you can always look at the sky to see where beacons are. Now, unfortunately, you cannot use beacons inside dungeons. They're only for overworld areas and also up in the sky. So you can use it when we're flying around to help you find stuff on islands, and that will come into play later. Now, for these enemies up ahead, I do highly recommend that you use Z targeting. It helps so much, and it makes your maneuverability a lot better. Be sure to use backflips in particular, are very effective. So while holding Z, you can hold back on the analog stick and press A to backflip, and that's the best way to get out of danger. So in order to take care of bokoblins, one of the best ways to initiate is actually to use a Skyward Strike. So I'm going to charge one up and smack them. This will knock several of them to the ground, and you can then finish them off that way real quick. You can also use Skyward Strikes to walk away. So if you run away from them without targeting, and then you can start charging it and then face towards them, and then you're hit a whole bunch of them at once. If one of them gets knocked to the ground, you can target them and then shake both the nunchuck and Wiimote at the same time to perform a fatal blow, and that'll take one of them out instantly. Otherwise, spin attacks are great. Now, spin attacks often don't work against the one that you're currently targeting, but it will work on a lot of the guys nearby, so that's really good. Now, as I was fighting this guy, there was an ornamental skull off to the side that I saw, and you want to make sure you get any treasure they drop before it disappears. So I got that ornamental skull real quick. If you're struggling with bokoblins and you can't figure out how to get through their defenses, then you can always use a shield bash, and that works really good too. Just make sure you just wait for their attack, and then time it well is the biggest thing I would recommend. Don't just bash it like crazy. You want to wait for it and then punch at the right time. It's very effective. You can get through their defenses guaranteed with any bokoblin type throughout the entire game. So once you've rescued this character, he will introduce himself, and he is a Goron, a race of rock-like creatures that have been in a lot of different games in the Zelda series, and this particular one is kind of a comedic character who's relatively funny. I find the stuff he says really interesting because he has all these theories about the sky, apparently. I find it so funny that Link has this notorious, it's almost like a meme where Link never speaks in any of the games, pretty much. There's a couple times where he speaks, for example, early in this game, he technically spoke with the headmaster. He was explaining what happened with him and Zelda. I think it was even at the beginning of the previous video. But anyways, so at this point, here Gorko is, he's desperate to find out information about the sky, and yet Link says nothing. And I find it so amusing. But anyways, Gorko will introduce you about various mechanics that are here on the ground, and he also has interesting things to say about the sky. And if you talk with him, it's sort of funny. He's spot on with some of his theories, and other of his theories are completely bogus and all way left field, makes no sense at all. So I find it kind of amusing how he talks about it. There's a lot of characters in Skyward Sword that only have dialogue available at very specific points of the game, so if you go talk with them, then you have an opportunity to see this optional dialogue. And Gorko is a good example of this, where he has a lot of different dialogue where he will only say that if you talked with him at a very specific point in the game. And a lot of times you're even running past and he just happens to be off to the side. But if you don't talk with him, you won't ever get the opportunity to see that again. So at this point in the game, they have this point where they're like super emphasizing the point that they want you to interact with the statue. What they're trying to get you to do is save. And ironically enough, if you save here at the statue, then Gorko actually has some optional dialogue that he will say after this. But this is the only way that he'll ever say that. But interestingly enough, one of the reasons why they're pointing this out, you can use the statues to go back to the sky, and that's all great. But the reason this is super important, the reason they have so much emphasis on it at this point, is because you want to activate all the statues. You can't actually use any bird statues until you speak with them for the first time. So just make sure you activate every bird statue you see. Now you can optionally create a shortcut by climbing the nearby vines and then pushing this log off the ledge. This will allow you to go from the sealed grounds area to behind the temple, but it's kind of weird because we have a bird statue in each place, and honestly there's no reason to go to the sealed grounds from here on out. There's like enemies to go through. The behind the temple bird statue is just superior, so I'm not really sure what the point is of that. I do like to smack the bugs whenever I'm here, especially early games, so I just roll into the walls here to collect some of these horned rhino beetles. And there's also some more bugs underneath those little circular rocks there, but we can't actually grab those yet. Continue on through the next opening, and there's actually the beacon up ahead. I'm going to remove it off my map because I want to keep my map nice and clean. I will occasionally use beacons to highlight various things throughout the walkthrough just to make it a little easier to understand, but generally speaking I'll try and keep my map pretty clean. I'm going to go ahead and push this log over to the ledge. This will allow us to climb it and reach this upper ledge, which continues on deeper into the forest. That's the end of this video. The next section is super long, so I'm going to go ahead and just end this video here. So join me for the next one, where we'll continue with Faron Woods. I wonder if I can just light it like this. Can I? Just jump into it? Yeah. That's actually kind of cool. Never seen that before. I'm pleased with myself. That was actually kind of clever. Like, who needs a torch? Actually, that's a good point. Do you ever need a torch then? Because if you can use arrows, you can do that at the very beginning of the game. Like, if that's the case, you never need a torch. Ever. Okay, so I needed it for this part. So it's not true that you can't do the entire game without it. I feel a little more intelligent for having, like, jumped into fires with my arrows.